Well, hello! I am Chris Swearingin, and this is Computer Magazine. Let's get the digital mashup started for today, February 23rd, 2017. Well, we have several stories to talk over today. Amazon goes to court to stop U.S. murder cops turning Echo devices into Big Brother. Apple Spaceship Campus, now dubbed Apple Park, will open in April. This is this huge new campus they're building that looks like a spaceship. Yeah, it was expensive, I know. And, well, I don't know if we should talk over this one, but YouPorn just launched a new virtual reality platform. But, you know, it might be interesting. Let's check it out. And we have the picture of the day. We have a few questions from readers and viewers. We also have the video of the day, by the way. And other interesting stuff. And you get to hang out with Computer Magazine. I mean, that's techie paradise. What more could you want? So stay tuned. Well, up first, from the Register, Amazon goes to court to stop U.S. murder cops turning Echo devices into Big Brother spies. Alexa, am I being murdered? Police in the U.S. believe an Amazon Echo overheard the murder of a bloke. This is a British thing, by the way. It's the Register. Of a bloke found dead floating in a hot tub. All the cops need is a copy of any audio recorded by the personal assistant, which would be conveniently stored in Amazon's cloud. Let's go and check out the rest of the story. One small problem, Amazon is still refusing to hand over any recordings and has gone to court to shoo away the detectives. For good. Good for you, Amazon. Not, of course, this is a terrible situation with a murder, and but we've got a bigger issue with privacy and with companies having such control over our data and our private lives. So, I mean, a murder and really some of these advanced crimes, maybe it's questionable, but the police, of course, will use any tactic they can to have an excuse for even minor crimes to pry into our personal data, and we really have to fight this. We have to fight this. Okay, so back to the story, though. The legal fight revolves around the slaying of Victor Collins, 47, on November 22nd, 2015. Well, whoever bought this Echo was an early adopter because it didn't come out till November of 2014. I think they started developing it in 2010. Collins had been drinking at the Arkansas home of his friend James Bates, 31, who officers arrested and charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Collins was strangled to death and had a black eye, investigators claim. Prosecutors allege he was killed by Bates, who then hosed down the area to hide evidence. The cops think Bates' Alexa-powered Echo, which was found in the kitchen, may have recorded what went on that night, even though you need to say a wake-up word to activate Alexa. I bet some of your Alexas are activating right now. And we can't imagine Alexa, Amazon, or Echo coming up during a mortal struggle. I don't know. If I had an Alexa, which I don't hear, I think that's the one thing I would scream just to make sure it was recorded. Still, the Plod got a search warrant. The Plod. got a search warrant demanding any conversations or sounds the gadget sent to Amazon's cloud. Yes, Amazon processes and stores your Echo chats in the banks of computers. Yeah, but I don't actually think they would have stored this, but we'll get into that later. Amazon refused to fully comply with the search warrant and has now filed a motion to the Circuit Court of Benton County, Arkansas to quash the order. The tech giant says any conversation a customer has with their Echo is covered by the First Amendment. The warrant requests that Amazon produce any audio recordings and transcripts that were created as a result of interactions with an Amazon Echo device owned by the defendant James Bates and located in his residence. The filing, submitted earlier this month, reads, Given the important First Amendment and privacy implications at stake, the warrant should be quashed unless the court finds that the state has met its heightened burden for compelled production of such materials. The police were asking for, among other things, all Echo recordings in the 48 hours surrounding the presumed time of death. Amazon handed over the logs of stuff purchased via the voice-controlled device and the owner's account information, but not a single byte of any sound recordings or their transcripts. The recordings stored by Amazon for subscribers' Echo device will usually be both the user's speech in the form of a request for information from Alexa and, number 2, a transcript or depiction of the Alexa voice service response conveying the information it determines would be most responsive to the user's query, Amazon said. Both types of information are protected speech under the First Amendment. Leaving aside the legal arguments, Amazon is keen to ensure that the police can't use its devices as perpetual bugs in the homes of owners. If a legal precedent is established for that, sales will go off the side of a cliff. You know, I think that's true. I think if people knew that whatever devices they purchase, competitors' equivalents of the Echo, even your computer and all, if they knew that the police could request at any time for whatever reason, and of course a murder is a big reason, but for lesser reasons, they get a search warrant and listen to all your recordings. Of course, that would be if they were kept, stored, and according to Amazon and other competitors, they claim that the cache is only stored for a short amount of time, or if at all, just to be processed. So there's a lot of slips out of this noose, but it would be very bad for the industry. Well, next up is from Ars Technica. Apple's spaceship campus, now dubbed Apple Park, will open in April. Apple has been building its giant new spaceship campus in the company's hometown of Cupertino, California since December of 2013, and since then fans have paid obsessive attention to the structure. It gets buzzed by drones constantly, and the most popular YouTube videos of the building in progress have amassed well over 500,000 views apiece. The company announced plans today that the campus will be open to employees starting in April, and that the building and environs now have a name: Apple Park. Surprise, surprise. Apple says that moving the 12,000 employees who will work at the campus will take more than 6 months, and landscaping and construction on some buildings won't be done until the summer. The new campus mostly replaces the university-style Infinite Loop campus Apple has used since 1993, though Apple has said that it will also be keeping the older buildings. The new campus cost has been estimated at around $5 billion. So they're calling it Apple Park. Yeah, I'm guessing they wouldn't want to call it Googleplex or Microsoft something or another. Although I don't think they hate Microsoft as much as Google nowadays. Let's read the rest of the article. Apple will also be naming one space on the new campus after its founder and former CEO. The Steve Jobs Theater will replace the current town hall event space that Apple sometimes uses for company meetings and product announcements, and it will be open, quote, later this year, unquote. The new space will be much larger. It will seat 1,000 compared to roughly 300 for the town hall, and the larger space will presumably allow Apple to launch more of its products on its campus rather than having to rent expensive event space in downtown San Francisco. Because, Apple needs to save money, after all. It's the one thing they lack, The company is also moving its Worldwide Developers Conference closer to home this year. It will return to San Jose after many years at the Moscone Center in San Francisco. Apple's new campus was one of the last things Steve Jobs worked on at Apple before he passed away in 2011. He presented the company's proposal for the campus in front of the Cupertino City Council on June 7, 2011 in his final public speaking appearance. Yeah, I saw that. You should check that out. The link here is in the article. So, on to our next story. From Digital Trends, YouPorn just launched a new and obviously not safe for work virtual reality platform. I'm not sure we should do this one. Okay, yes, we hear you. We hear you. But we're going to anyway. Steamy streaming video website YouPorn launched a new virtual reality platform this week. If you like your immersive VR with extra NSFW not safe for work, this is probably the 360-degree video site for you. Well, this is the future, let me tell you. This is where it's going. Let's check out the rest of the article. The service offers a range of 360-degree videos of assorted adult scenarios, which we assume includes things like filing tax returns and worrying about mortgage repayments. It can be accessed using any VR headset from Oculus Rift to Google Cardboard, although we'd suggest sticking with one of the higher-end, more liquid-resistant options. Yeah. We're not even going to talk about that. VR provides the user with a whole new sensory experience. And fundamentally alters the way we interact with the content. YouPorn VP Brad Burns told Digital Trends. The user is immersed in a unique POV setting that goes beyond simply viewing a video and gives them opportunity to truly interact with their virtual environment. Yeah. We believe this is transformative, not just for our industry, but for digital media as a whole. We are excited to see how this progresses and continue to strive to be at the forefront of new entertainment technologies. According to Burns, the site will add new VR videos daily. At this rate, we believe that growth will outpace that of traditional videos as headsets become more readily available and this great new form of entertainment gains momentum. He continued, VR is still in its infancy, but it shows great promise for 2017 and beyond. And we've secured some fantastic content partners to ensure that we have a constant and varying stream of content being added to that category regularly. The porn industry has long been an early adopter of innovative technologies, according to Alice Beniso, a researcher who follows VR porn. YouPorn is simply trying to keep up with the way the saucy entertainment industry is headed. Any adult content provider now has to realize that they need to lay a stake in that space, so to speak, she told Digital Trends. They are pretty late to the game, actually. It was only last year that Naughty America launched their offering, and Pornhub soon followed, along with others, but a year is a long time in tech. All in all, it's just another reminder of how far virtual reality has come. And no, we're not touching that pun, neither am I. Well, I tell you what, VR and AR is the future. You think your phone is ubiquitous now, and it's funny how in movies of the future that they're producing even today, people have phones. Usually they're clear, but they're, obviously advanced smartphones of the future that they're envisioning. But that's not going to be the future, I'm sure of it. The future is going to be AR, VR headsets that are going to be closer to Google Glass are going to be very low profile. In fact, they may be indistinguishable from our glasses. Well, they will be at some point. And they will be your interface of the future. You're going to have your computer projected into your eyes. You're going to have an earpiece that comes out of the sidebar, microphone. Everything's going to be built in, Wi-Fi, cellular, and you are going to experience both AR and VR, and things like this too. You know, especially with add-on devices that interface with the eyeglasses, so to speak. So this is the future, though. Of course, porn is an early adopter. I mean, you look back to the beginning of the internet, even before the internet, BBSs, and one thing you could do is get on a dial-up BBS and you could download naked pictures. It might take 10 hours to get one picture. I mean, not me. I mean, you know, I was downloading photos of other things, but you know, a person. So, but anyway, this is the future. So, yep. Time to get with it. Get your AR, VR headset, Oculus, Microsoft's device. So, you know, they are in the infancy, though, right now. So, probably in a couple years, things will be a lot more advanced. And if you're not an early adopter, it's probably worth waiting for now. Hey, my geek brothers and sisters from another computing device, Linux build. We work 24/7 here at Computer Magazine to bring you all the top technology news from across the web. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Computer Magazine. Also, like and share our videos, and join us at our other social locations. They're in the links in the comments of the video. So, may the force be with you, Spock confusingly says. Yeah, sure, that'll work. Well, our picture of the day comes from Steve Williams of Jacksonville, Florida. And here it is. It says, "Your mother is so fat, through recursive function, computing her mass causes a Stack Overflow." That's a little bit of programmer humor. So if you're a developer, you probably find that a little funnier. I don't know that fat jokes are politically correct nowadays, but yeah, it's still funny. Although if he's using a CRT, that's gotta be a pretty old meme. You know, look at that. Anyway, make sure you send us your pictures, your technology pictures, whether funny or not, or something you want to talk about, to editor Computer Magazine. That's my email. Join us in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Computer Magazine. There's plenty of places on ComputerMagazine.com to post your picture. And you can get in the chat, ComputerMagazine.com/chat. So our video of the day actually starts from an article written on the Daily Beast by Kevin Poulsen. Now, he's the famous hacker and now journalist who writes on different publications, but he talks about the hacking case against Russia. And this was back in January that he wrote this. And then Steve Gibson of Gibson Research on Security Now, which is on the Twit network, talked about it. And we're going to listen to his talk about it. And he talks about a part of this article. It's a really long article. I'll put the link in the description along with all the other links, and I suggest you read it. But I really respect Steve Gibson, and if you're going to listen to anything on the Twit network or watch anything, I definitely suggest Security Now, especially if you're an information technology professional, that be on the top of your list. Really knowledgeable guy, and he's been in this longer than me. I've been in this 30 years, and he's been in 40 or longer as a developer and owns a company and everything. So anyway, let's listen to Mr. Gibson talk about a part of this topic.
Is how the U.
Oh, we're gonna have to back up a little bit. Okay, here we go.
I want to drag everyone through it because I wanted to focus on the second portion where he really sort of pulls this down to earth and shares some details. So, for example, he writes, oh, and I should say the title is How the U.S. Hobbled Its Hacking Case Against Russia and Enabled Truthers. And so he writes, jumping down to the middle, the department released, and he's talking about the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, this was their joint creation, released 876 internet IP addresses it says is linked to Grizzly Step, which we talked about last week, hacking, and urged network administrators everywhere to add the list, 876 IP addresses, to their networking monitoring. Lists of IP addresses, Kevin writes, used by hackers can be useful, quote, indicators of compromise in network security. Admins can check the list against access logs or program an intrusion detection system to sound the alarm when it sees traffic from a suspect address. But that assumes that the list is good, carefully culled, and surrounded with enough context that administrators know what to do when they get a hit. Meaning not just here's a list of 876 bad IP addresses. Kevin writes, the DHS list is none of these things. As Lee, founder of the cybersecurity firm Dragos, discovered, when he ran the list against a stored cache of known clean traffic his company keeps around for testing, the results stunned him. He said, we had thousands of hits. We had an extraordinary high amount of false positives on this data set. 6 of them were Yahoo email servers. It turns out that some, perhaps most, of the watch-listed addresses have a decidedly weak connection to the Kremlin, if any at all. Kevin writes, in addition to the Yahoo servers, about 44% of the addresses are exit nodes in the Tor anonymity network. Now, I have seen a different number quoted elsewhere. I saw a number of 15%, but still, it's ridiculous to think that Tor exit nodes mean anything. I mean, we know what they are. They're general purpose servers where the traffic is finally decrypted after its last hop through the Tor network and emerges onto the public internet. So, yeah, bad guys use it, but so do all kinds of good people who just would like to have the privilege of anonymity on the internet. So what I got a kick out of was that thanks to Kevin's work, we did get a bit more information about what triggered that Vermont electric utility concern that we discussed last week. He writes, the consequences of the over-inclusive list became apparent last week when a Vermont utility company, Burlington Electric Department, followed DHS's advice and added the addresses to its network monitoring setup, as DHS said to. It got an alert within a day. The utility called the feds. The Washington Post soon broke the distressing news that, quote, Russian hackers penetrated the U.S. electricity grid through a utility in Vermont. Well, of course, we debunked that already last week because it was clearly not the case. And then Kevin says the story was wrong. Not only was the laptop in question isolated from the utility's control systems, the IP address that triggered the alert wasn't dangerous at all. It was one of the Yahoo servers, the Yahoo email servers on the DHS list, and the alert had been generated by a Burlington Electric employee checking his email. The Post article was later corrected, but not before Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy issued a statement condemning the putative Russian attack. Oh, Lord. So anyway, the good news is there's some meat here. Kevin says, but to analysts in the computer security industry, the hackers are old, familiar adversaries. I skipped a bunch of stuff that we already understand, where they were just talking about how there was way more smoke than substance in this. So he says these hackers are old, familiar adversaries that they, meaning the security industry, have been watching under a microscope for the better part of a decade. The first group, called Fancy Bear, or APT28, has been active since at least mid-2007. The group typically begins its attacks with targeted spear phishing emails. Oh my God, Leo, I forgot to mention. On Sunday, I heard Reince Priebus, and I didn't verify it, but he did say on national television that John Podesta's email account's password was password.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I think that's more fake news.
Okay. Good, because
I'd like to see the verifying document on that.
So we know what spear phishing is. Then the group installs backdoors controlled through a cloud of command and control servers deployed around the world. Its targets have included NATO, several U.S. defense contractors, the German parliament, and after Russia's doping scandal began, the World Anti-Doping Agency. One of the command and control servers used in the DNC hack was reportedly also used in the Bundestagen intrusion.
Bundestag.
Thank you.
That's the German parliament.
The other group, commonly called the Dukes, or APT-29, was first spotted operating in Chechnya in 2008. Stealthier and more cautious than Fancy Bear, the Dukes have nonetheless been detected infiltrating the White House, the State Department, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Known for innovation, one attack campaign used Twitter as a command and control channel. They have their own fleet of customizable malware, including a program called Seaduke, Seaduke, that they only bring out for the really important targets, and which was found again on the DNC's network. Security companies, Kevin writes, can tell you much more about these groups, their code, their infrastructures, and their methods. F-Secure has an excellent 34-page write-up of the Dukes, and FireEye has a deep dive into Fancy Bear, among many other reports from different companies on the net. From analysis and the dozens of malware packages used exclusively by these hackers, researchers can tell you that they're usually compiled on machines with the language set to Russian. Both groups operate during working hours in Russia and take Russian holidays off. And these are, of course, attributes that we've talked about in the past as being, signals that are used to give some sense for what's actually going on. Their targets are radically different from those for-profit criminals, hackers in Eastern Europe or anywhere else. No banks, no retailers with credit card numbers to steal, always governments, companies, journalists, NGOs, and other targets that the Russian government would be interested in. In other words, these hackers don't operate like 14-year-olds or, the 400-pound person on the bed. They sometimes use off-the-shelf hacking tools, but more often they deploy industrial-scale malware no teenagers have access to. They hit targets of interest to spies, not kids. And virtually all the public analysis of these two groups concluded well before it became a political issue with the DNC hack that they are likely controlled by the Russian government. The evidence, then, that Russia interfered with the election is already solid. Well, okay, to whatever degree that, it mattered. Well, of course, the DNC is part of the election, but okay, and is supported by years of work by the security industry. Lee, again, from Dragos notes, if you've been following along, all the evidence that matters is already public. This is one case out of hundreds that they've investigated involving the same hackers. It's all very, very consistent. It all makes sense. It's all very, very solid, he says. It's just that the government is now confusing everyone. And so in my notes, I wrote, how are we to understand what happened here? And all I can think is perhaps it's a mixture of internet illiterate politicians coupled with the demands of bureaucratic management. It must be that we have, although this would shake anyone's confidence, probably deep within the NSA, skilled professional hackers who know all of this, who are no more happy than the security industry and informed internet savvy people are with this, the nature of this disclosure, which has just mucked everything up. And this must have been, I don't know, like calling most companies and speaking to technical support. We know you're not talking to an expert when you talk to the frontline tech support person. You wind up talking to someone who thinks IP is something that happens when you wake up in the middle of the night, rather than an internet protocol address.
That's a good line. I'm gonna steal that.
That's original. So anyway, so that's the story with the report. Now, part of that was this, we found some malware. Okay, well, get a load of this. First of all, it's publicly available. The version that they reported, it's known as PAS, and they wrote the DHS talked about version 3.1.0, which is relatively old. There is 3.1.7 is freely available, and there's already at a version 4. And it's sort of generic PHP-based malware. So let's step back for a second. We've talked around a lot about PHP and other server-side technologies. Essentially, there's, just to give it a little bit of background, there's sort of 3 ways to skin the cat of enhancing a web page. Without any of that, you end up with the Tim Berners-Lee, click a link, there's a document, and you scroll through it, and it has other hypertext links, which you click, and then it takes you to other linked documents. That was the original web. Of course, then we said, okay, we got to make it do more. So there's the server-side approach, which has 2 different flavors. There's native code, which is my style. For example, Shields Up, the GRC's e-commerce system, the perfect passwords page, the SSL fingerprints, the cookie forensics, the DNS spoofability. All of those things, those services that I've created over the years, are enhancements to the web server. So they're extensions to the web server. In fact, many people have seen ne.dll in the URL. That's my own DLL. NE stands for Net Engine. And so that's that thing it's my own extension to the Microsoft's IIS server, which has been growing. And the idea is that it can intercept things coming in. So for example, it sees passwords.htm And on the way to the server, it converts the URL into an ne.dll something in order to access that DLL service on the back end, which then uses a very high quality pseudo random number generator and then presents a static page. And this is the key, a static page customized for that particular instance. So the code running on the back end on the server is involved in dynamically creating the page. It's not just dumping an HTML file from the server's drive out onto the user. So it's involved in doing it on the fly. Then the second approach is to move the dynamicism to the client side. And that's, of course, what scripting, client-side scripting gives us. And, of course, I've done that where necessary. The off-the-grid tool that generated Latin squares locally on the user's browser, and the password haystacks is a perfect example where as you're typing in, the haystack calculator is showing the alphabet size and the length of time that password current to that keystroke would be updated. So that's JavaScript running in the browser, which is the way you create the greatest level of interactivity. Because I could have done that, but I would have had to have a round trip to GRC and back and be like constantly updating the whole page, which just isn't the way to do it. The third approach is sort of a compromise, and it's an interesting solution. It's code on the server side, which is interpreted sort of on the way to the user. So there's a static page that the server delivers to this middle layer, which it could be Perl or PHP, Ruby, Java, Python, or even JavaScript on the server side. And so the idea is that something like PHP, it scans the page looking for something that it has to do. There will be a specific escape character sequence that is the key that says, oh, the following is PHP code. So when the PHP interpreter scanning the page sees that, it reads that as code and then executes the code and typically replaces that code with the result of the code execution. So, for example, it might make a SQL database backend query or a bunch of them, or do any amount of work. And so the idea is, as the page is leaving the website, this scripting language, essentially an interpreted scripting language on the server, takes a static page and executes the code in the page, and then what the user gets is the result of that. There's no more PHP anymore, on the page. It's been replaced with whatever that PHP code resolved to. So those are sort of the different ways you bring pages alive today. So the server side scripting is a very
the segment was longer than I had recalled. This was back in January on Security Now, which is part of the Twit network. Leo Laporte, you probably know him if you've been in IT for a long time. He did the screensavers, and it was on radio and so forth. Anyway, it went on a little longer than I had recalled, but it's worth watching the whole thing, so I'll put the link in the description. And Steve Gibson, a brilliant guy. He's an assembly level programmer, assembly language programmer, like I was. I rarely do it nowadays, but way back with Borland Turbo Pascal or Borland Turbo Assembler, and even Turbo Pascal, but that's not assembly, and Microsoft's assembler and MashUp, and even assembly on the Commodore 64. 8-bit days prior to that. I don't want to date myself too much, but yeah. Anyway, it's not something I do much of anymore, but Steve still does, and he's a brilliant guy. He's been in the industry for a long time. And definitely really brilliant about security. So if you're an IT professional, make sure you watch that. Of course, watch Computer Magazine. And we're going to be talking about some of the issues he discussed there, such as PHP programming. We're going to have to do these in other series and on ComputerInstruction.com, which is part of Computer Magazine, as instructional videos. If you're a web developer, you do PHP development probably. Of course, WordPress is based on PHP and JavaScript with, of course, HTML and CSS. And we're going to go over all those things in our other series, and of course on ComputerInstruction.com. But yeah, we can't really hear with the digital mashup because it's kind of our daily news snapshot of IT. Anyway, but here, of course, here's DHS getting things wrong again. Our government not understanding the data that they are seeing through the IDSs, through the intrusion detection systems, and the firewalls, and that's a problem, because if you don't understand what it is you're seeing, you can overreact to certain data, as they did here, as you can clearly see. And which means you will underreact to other hacking events, attempted intrusion events, and yeah, that's a problem. That's a real problem. So hopefully they sort that out. Certainly, like he said, they certainly have the professionals inside in the NSA and DHS and so forth that know. But this has become a kind of a political hot button issue. So politicians injecting themselves are confusing the whole thing. So now let's go on to our question of the day. So our question of the day actually comes from our chat room. Remember, go to computermagazine.com/chat, and you can chat live or anytime if there's people in the room, but definitely while we're live on the air is the best time to do it, and I will try to answer your questions. You can also call 408-337-2775 and ask your question live on the air, and I will try to answer your tech questions. So this question comes from Techmans. Haven't heard of you before. What makes you qualified to be on this show? Well, sir, that is a good question. I've actually been in the IT industry for 30 years. This year, Computer Magazine is having its 20-year anniversary, and I started Computer Magazine and am the editor-in-chief and publisher. So other than that, I'm also a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and I've been in the IT industry professionally for 30 years. Hopefully I don't look that old, but I am. I started when I was 18, 1986, so I'm a programmer, a developer. I've been an IT director of major Fortune 500 companies, and I started a chain of computer stores. Let's see. I run a technology consulting firm. I also own and I developed Matchfinder.com, one of the first dating sites, web dating sites on the internet. So make sure you check that out, Matchfinder.com. And I own about 200 other sites that I've developed and operate. So there's that. And other than that, I've been a journalist in IT and just heavily involved in IT for many years. So I don't know. There's a lot of people, though, that are very qualified, of course. So the reason I do this is because I love it. It's not really a matter of qualification. Anybody can do it. If you love technology, talk about it, write about it, get involved. That's my suggestion. But thanks for the question, and hopefully I don't disappoint. Now, it is true that I haven't taken the multimedia aspect seriously until recently. Not that I didn't take it seriously, but frankly I just haven't had time with all the other projects I'm involved with. But of course Computer Magazine has operated for 20 years, but it was definitely time to get serious about the video, and we've had youtube.com/computer magazine for many years, but I've kind of ignored it, and made occasional videos, but it was time to really get serious about it, and so that's why you're seeing me more now as far as on video in the video world. But of course I've written for years. But anyway, thank you for your question, and make sure you get on computermagazine.com/chat and ask your question. Call the phone number, email me, editor@computermagazine.com, join the Facebook group, and any of the other social networks, and I will try to answer your questions. If you have any technology question or you want to talk tech, I love to talk tech. We love to talk tech. So join us. Well, that's it for today, my fellow techs, nerds, geeks. Thursday, February 23rd, 2017. But come back tomorrow and we will do the digital mashup all over again. Go over all the technology news for Friday. But in the meantime, make sure to go to our YouTube at youtube.com/computer magazine. Like the videos, share the videos if you like them. Like them, give them thumbs up, give them thumbs down if you don't like them. If you find them terrible and you laugh at them, then share them to make fun of them. But either way, also ask questions, post your questions, post your comments on the YouTube videos. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to talk back with you. But remember, we are here 24/7 bringing you the top technology news across the web. So make sure to go to computermagazine.com. Join the group on Facebook. That's a great way. Facebook.com/groups/computer magazine. It's a great way to talk with me and others on there. Share your picture of the day and ask your questions. But remember, all the links to the stories we covered are in the video's description, and links to all of our other places on social networks the links are also in the description. So join us at any of those that you're a part of. And yeah, you know what? I will see you back here tomorrow. And I hope you'll come back. So see you then. And thanks for joining Computer Magazine.